Hi everyone, thank you for watching and welcome to Karma's Kitchen. My name is Karma, and in these videos I hope to share with you the meals that I cook here in my kitchen. I also hope to share with you the things that I've learned about cooking and health and nutrition over the years. So if you like cooking, sharing and learning, then I hope you'll enjoy what I'll be cooking today in this video. So today I'm making hand-shaped nigiri, and to do that I'm going to have to go all the way back to the beginning, even before the sushi rice, and that is to the sushi vinegar. And the sushi vinegar is used in the sushi rice to impart flavor, but also to act primarily as a preservative. In Japan, before they had refrigeration, they would use these types of vinegars to preserve their rice and fish. So these days, luckily, we have lots of pre-made sushi vinegar that is available, and normally I myself would probably go for something like that because it just saves that little bit of time. Well, actually it saves a lot of time. But I also think it's really good to try making these things yourself at least once and to give it a go. I also think it makes things special, and this is special. This is my first video. So I'd like to go all the way and make it all completely from scratch, so we can all sit back with the satisfaction looking at our lopsided nigiri going, yes, I made it. I made all of it. There's yeah, it's a satisfaction you can't beat. It's a little bit addictive. So let us not waste any more time and get into making this vinegar. So to make sushi vinegar is actually pretty simple. It doesn't have too many ingredients. We have some rice wine vinegar, and you can use a red or white, and you can even combine 50-50, the red and white, and that will increase the acidity if that's something that you want to do. I'm just going to use the plain white rice wine vinegar. You also need salt, 2 tablespoons of salt, which I know for some people is a shocking amount of salt to use, but remember this is for preserving. If you find it is too salty for you, well then the next time you can dial it down. We're also going to be using a lot of sugar. I'm just using caster sugar, primarily because it is very fine and it dissolves really easily. I think if you're in the US or UK, it's super fine. I can't remember, is it the US? It's super fine sugar. It just dissolves better. Now, normally you'd use kombu, which is a type of edible seaweed. It's very, very high in iodine. Very, very good for you. I wasn't able to get kombu, so I'm using wakame, which is also an edible kelp and is very, very healthy for you. It's got lots of B3 and B1 in it, as well as iodine and calcium, so really healthy seaweed. I'm going to use that instead. Normally you'd use this in soups and salads, but I'm going out on a limb. Where you find yourself lacking, just substitute. I found in all my years cooking, 95% of the time it works. And that's it. Vinegar, salt, sugar, wakame, and a pot. You need a pot. Let's get cooking. Okay, break from my face. Yay. We need our little saucepan, just a small one, and you need the heat on medium. And into the saucepan, we're going to put the vinegar. And you just want to gently heat the vinegar. Don't let it boil. Okay, so as you can see, that's now heating up. That took around about 4 minutes to do. I'm now going to add the sugar. And I'm going to add the salt. have my little whisk. And you need to stir this continuously until all the sugar and salt have dissolved. All the sugar and salt have now dissolved and you're left with a clear liquid, and it has reduced a bit. So the very last thing to do is to add the kombu, if you're able to get kombu, or the wakame. And we just sprinkle that in. It's just a small amount. And now we're going to leave it for around about an hour. That gives the time for the flavor of the wakame to steep into the vinegar. And it also gives it time to cool down to be stirred into the sushi rice. And that gives us time to make the sushi rice. So let's get to that. Alright, next in our hand-shaped nigiri process, we need to make the sushi rice. So we've made our vinegar to go into our rice. Now we need to make our rice. So the sushi vinegar is off to the side cooling. And if you see me looking down, it's because I'm looking at my notes so I remember everything. Okay, how do we make sushi rice? First you need sushi rice. Most major supermarkets sell a brand of sushi rice. There is probably a lot of conversation and discussion about the rice you should use, or the rice that makes the perfect sushi. And I suppose it's up to you, ultimately, what rice you do decide to use. If you're somebody who doesn't like white rice, you prefer the brown or wild rices, you can make sushi with brown rice, but make sure that it is the Japanese brown rice. The rice that you would find sold most generally in the supermarket, it's no good, it's not appropriate. It won't absorb the water in the right way, and you're just going to end up with really hard, nutty in not a nice way, chewy sushi, which is not the result you're looking for. So if you do go for the brown rice, make sure it is the Japanese brown rice. And that's as far into that debate as I'm going. I'm just using Pandaroo brand. I have no idea how good it is meant to be or not. I don't know any different, so I'm happy with it. So that is what I'm using. And you need 500 grams or 2 cups of it. The next ingredient you're going to need is probably a little bit self-explanatory, and that is water. You're going to need 500 mils, half a liter. What does my little thingy say? Half a pint, 16 ounces of water, or 2 cups. In whatever measurement you need water. We're also going to be using more wakame. Again, I can't get kombu at this present time, so wakame it is. And there are some other things that you need for sushi. You need a fine sieve. Again, I don't have one. I just have a little one, which is not actually little enough. So I'm just using your basic strainer, and this is going on the bottom to catch the rice that may fall out into a bowl. You'll also need a rice paddle. That will explain itself further down the line. If you don't have one of these though, if you have a very large wooden cooking spoon, that would just do just fine. Or if you have a very large silicone spatula, that too will do the job just fine. What else do you need? I'm looking around. What do you need? What do you need? You also need a fan. Doesn't have to be as pretty as this one, but fan. All right, to the next step. Welcome to my very little sink, in which I have my strainer and my little sieve, and I have a big bowl to catch the water. It's not really an important thing to catch the water. It's just merely an observation, because we're going to rinse the rice, and you want to rinse the rice until the water is almost clear. So it helps to have a bowl just so you can see when it has run clear. Okay, rice into strainer. My little sieve hasn't really worked, but hey, at least I'm trying. Cold water on. If you do not like tap water, by all means use filtered water. And you just want to, if you don't want to use your hands, I should say, you can use a spoon if you don't like using your hands. Although making Japanese food, it's a little bit difficult. It's a very hands-friendly kind of food. You can wear food preparation gloves. That's also a suggestion. I don't mind. I always wash my hands before I start cooking. It's a good thing to do. It's just good kitchen hygiene, but it's also respectful to the people that you are cooking for. Okay. We can see that water's pretty milky. So you might need to do this about 4 to 6 times. And because it might take that long, and I don't trust my conversational skills, and it's pretty boring watching a bowl of rice, huh? I'll come back to you after I've finished rinsing this rice. Okay, so my rice is all, rinsed. There we are. Now you need to let it sit for at least 10 minutes beforehand. Okay, and then we have our saucepan. You want the lid to fit tightly. You don't want too much steam to escape, because steam escaping is water escaping, and that can lead to your rice drying out, which is not good. You want to avoid that. So, pot on, water, and then the rice. And then you want to add the kombu. You probably want it on a medium-high heat to bring it to the boil. And once it's at the boil, you'll then want to boil it for 5 minutes. And then reduce the heat and simmer it for roughly 15 minutes. Last is the kombu or wakame if you're using it. You can actually skip it out if you don't want to use it at all, or you can't get it at all. Try to avoid taking the lid off while it's cooking, because again, that's water lost. Okay. There we go. Rice is cooking. Now, of course, you can use a rice cooker, and if you're really lucky, it will even have a sushi setting. Great. I do actually have a rice cooker. I'm not friends with it. I don't like it, and it doesn't particularly like me. I've always cooked rice the traditional way, with a pot on the stove, and I don't seem to be able to transition to that wonderful piece of technology. Jamie uses the rice cooker all the time, and that's what he prefers. So he uses the rice cooker, I use a pot. Ultimately, go with what you're comfortable with. So if you do prefer cooking with a rice cooker, go for it. Do that. I will come back when the rice is cooked. Well, my rice is done. Sushi rice. I've taken most of my wakame out because I don't want that much in my sushi personally. Wakame expands quite a lot when it's cooking. As I mentioned earlier, it is normally used in soups. So, and really you're using it in the sushi because you want flavor. If you're using the kombu, obviously you know it's a piece, so you just take that piece out. If you have a compost, put it in your compost. It will love you for it because kelp is full of so many nutrients and minerals. It's really, really good stuff. So you also remember the sushi vinegar at the beginning. I have since strained that, and half of it is now in this little bottle here. And once it's capped, it will go in my fridge and it will keep for close to 1 year. The other part of it is over here. It makes roughly half a cup. If you're metric, you'll use around about 50 mils. If you're imperial, I don't know, so I'll leave it in cups. And you'll use about 1/8 of a cup in your sushi rice. So if you're a bit worried at the beginning that all of that vinegar and salt is going in this rice, not all of that is going into the rice. Only a very small amount is. So once it's all mixed in, it is actually quite well balanced. It's not too bad. But if you do find it too salty, then you know next time, just dial the salt down a little bit. Or if you find it too sweet even, then dial down the sugar a little bit. Okay, so I also have this bowl, which is for the finished sushi rice. My fan. And our rice paddle. Now my rice paddle has been sitting in water while the rice has been cooking, and all this does is help the rice paddle not stick quite so much to the sushi rice. Sushi rice is very sticky. You probably would notice that pulling it out of a pot. It's, yeah, very, very sticky. So yeah, that's why you put it in water, is to help it stop sticking. You might find if you're using a silicone, a spatula, that's the word, a spatula, you might find that dipping it into water every now and again might help if you find that the rice is sticking too much. And sometimes for some reason there's just no cure and you're just going to have to scrape rice off your paddle. Yeah. All right. So actually no, before the paddle, back to our sushi vinegar and the paddle. Oh, just I'll get better at this, I promise. So what we want to do, and I know I'm a little bit far away, but yeah, let's just hope I give good descriptions. What you want to do is pour your vinegar across your paddle and move your paddle across the bowl as you pour. And what this does is just help the vinegar distribute itself more evenly throughout the rice, rather than just being in one big pool in the middle. Okay, so that's done. Your vinegar's in. Get your fan. Now I'm not particularly ambidextrous, so please do not laugh at me while I try to wave my fan and move rice at the same time. What you're wanting to do now is fan your rice, and as you fan your rice, move that rice about so that you move the vinegar through all of the rice. You want all the rice to get the vinegar. I think you get the idea, yeah. And why are you fanning your rice? Well, you're fanning your rice because it helps it cool down more evenly. So you're looking for even distribution of vinegar and even cooling of your rice. That way you don't get hot spots. And you just do that. And as you're going along, if you see any lumps in your rice, break them up. And you want to keep doing this. You know, this is really hard to fan, stir and talk at the same time. I just had to get that out. Right, where were we? Stirring. So you want to keep stirring until you can see that all of the vinegar has been absorbed into the rice. There's no more steam coming off the rice. think I wanted to say something else, but I've forgotten. Yeah. Oh, lumps. Yes. And you want to make sure you get all the lumps out of your rice. So I'll say that again. You want to stir until all of the vinegar has been absorbed by the rice. Make sure that you've got all your lumps out of your rice. And you want to fan your rice down until you can see that it's not steaming. Okay. And once you've done that, you want to smooth it down. Until it's, you pat and push it down. Oh, it's sticking to me. It's sticky. Now, we're going to leave that for 5 minutes and then turn and do the same thing. Smooth it all down so it's all nice and smooth, and leave it for another 5 minutes, and then you're going to put it in the fridge, ideally for 6 hours. But if you don't have 6 hours, which most of us don't, just, you know, for as long as possible, at least a couple of hours. And the reason for that is that it helps the rice take in all the flavors. It also helps the rice combine and what's an easy way to put it? Reach its optimal stickiness. I don't know what the technical term is. Yeah, so that's why you want to leave it. The longer you leave it, the better your rice gets, basically. But that's, you know, look, if you've only got an hour, if you've only got 2 hours, that's fine. It'll still be okay. Yeah, it's just an ideal thing that if you can leave it for 6 hours in the fridge, that's when your rice is going to be at its best. Okay, so I am going to leave my rice, flip it, and then leave it for another 5 minutes. And I'm going to get everything set up for us to make our nigiri. And when I've done that, we'll get to the main event, which should be a lot of fun. Okay, it is time to make nigiri. We have our rice in the smaller bowl. It's now a nice little rice cake. And we've got a bowl of very cold water. This is actually for your hands. So every time you go to shape a new nigiri, you put your hands in the water, shake off any excess, and then you shape your bowl. And just like with the rice paddle, it's to stop the rice from being so sticky on your hand. I'm going to set this to the side because I'm sharing my space with the camera. So it's a small kitchen, but it is there. And I have the plate to put the nigiri on. Now I'm going to start with vegetables. Not for any particular reason other than that they are a bit simpler. So I'm actually going to just set my rice here. And I have some carrot strips. They would have been a little wider, but my julienne peeler with its apparent ceramic blade snapped in half while I was doing the carrots, so I had to use a regular peeler. But if you have a mandolin, you can use that too. My peeler breaking makes me feel I really should get a mandolin, but anyway, we use what we have. I'm also using some avocado. I've cut out some shapes. Now the waste, don't worry about the waste too much because, well, unless you've got nothing else to do with the avocado, then we have a problem. But if you are somebody who eats avocado, then use avocado. You can use this, freeze it, and use it in smoothies. You can use it in cookies, all sorts of things. There's no reason to waste it. Yeah, I need that here for a moment. So I just want to show you a few things. So you also need a really sharp knife. This is probably not the sharpest, and no doubt someone's going to tell me it's not the best. I would love to be able to afford some of those really expensive Japanese knives. They'd be amazing. Now I'm just doing this as an example because you do need to slice very, very thinly. So when you're doing that, of course, make sure you are very, very careful and very confident with knives. I wouldn't overly recommend this for a beginner, to be honest. And what you want to do is let the knife naturally find its way in and follow the curve. And that was a terrible example. That was too thin. Shall we try again? You will make mistakes. I'm far from perfect. And you just follow the curve. And again, that didn't work. It might be the type of the wrong side. There we go. Okay. And you get a slice. Following the curve is important because that's going to give you a whole piece, and you want the whole piece, like I've prepared earlier, to cover the whole of your nigiri. Oh, no, I do still need that. Carrot. The other part. This poor carrot. I will grate it up afterwards and feed it to my chickens. They'll appreciate it. Using a vegetable peeler, you just hold the carrot flat and you want to push in a little bit at first so it bites into the carrot, and then you just run it along until you get a nice thin strip. And you'll find your sweet spot with it where you do get decent sized strips like I've got here. There we go. Nice thin slices. I put them on a plate with about a teaspoon of water, and then I microwave them for 30 seconds. And that just makes them extra bendy and a little easier to work with. All right, I think that's a basic example. I know this is a bit slapdash, but if you do want me to go into slicing techniques, I can do a separate video that is just how to slice and cut things. My main priority in this video is just to get through the recipe so that we all have at least a general idea of how it's cooked. Okay, I've also got a little plate here. So these are actually from Seaweed Snacks, and you can, well, they might be under different brand names in different countries. So this is teriyaki, and I've just cut it into little strips, and this is just for decoration because I am that way. And a lot of Japanese food is about making things look pretty and making things look nice. Half of it is the care, well, not half of it, but a lot of it is the care of the preparation, and that you sit down to something that looks really nice. The other part, these tiny little dots, believe it or not, are little ears, noses, and mouths of little panda faces. Because yes, I'm also a big kid. And again, this is a stamper. Now it's normally used with your nori sheets that you wrap sushi rolls in. But I'm subversive and I do use it for vegetables here and there, or vegetables that will fit through the slot. Just make sure that if you are subversive like me and choose to do something like that, that you wash these out very thoroughly and make sure that they're dried out. Otherwise, the next time you go to use them for sushi rolls, yeah, it might not be so nice. Okay, back to nigiri, which is a type of sushi. Hands in water. Shake off the excess, clap it out. I'm flicking it out, however, but make sure you keep your hands wet. Don't wipe your hands because, yeah, you need them nice and wet. You want to take a bowl that's around about a tablespoon and you just want to mold it. Now, if you use a knife with your right hand, use your right hand. If you use a knife with your left hand, like I do, use your left hand. And you just shape it into a little oblong, okay? And then, if I can pick up a piece of avocado, you get your little sliver of avocado in this hand, and wasabi. My last little ramble. This is wasabi. Check, because sometimes it will say wasabi and it's just green colored horseradish, and there's nothing wrong with that. And if that's all you can get, hey, that's all you can get. But most major supermarkets and certainly Asian grocery stores will sell proper wasabi, so it's worth having a look for. If you want to be really authentic and you can get to a market, you can actually buy the wasabi root, but it's pretty expensive. All right, back to our little oblong, in which I've broken one of the cardinal rules, which is explaining that to you, which is over handling. You don't really want it to get too warm, especially if you're working with fish, which we will be next, so I will have to shut up and just do. Okay, so you put like a tiny dot of wasabi. If you hate wasabi, leave it. Don't do anything. But it does help what you put on top stay on top, as well as give a very nice flavor kick. All right, and then you do this and you pop it on top, and we're almost done. I hope you can see that. So I'm getting my little strips and just laying them across diagonally. Oops. I can't talk, I'm sorry, it requires concentration. And so does talking. All right, now I'm just gonna grab some scissors, which I forgot to bring over with me. There we go. and just snip the ends off so it's nice and neat. Right, nigiri 1. How easy was that? Once you get past the vinegar and the rice, then, you know, it's really easy. Okay, we'll go carrot next. Oh, yeah, not thinking. Water, water, hands in water. And about a tablespoon of rice. And just mold it into an oblong. Okay. And then we want our dot of wasabi. This time I'm using carrot. Over the top. And set it down. Oh, that won't work. How easy is that? She says it's so easy and then screws it up. But I think it's important to see that, because I think too often we see cooking videos and everything's perfect and everything looks glamorous and maybe even a little bit sexy, and that's, you know, very few people actually have that happen in their kitchen. Part of cooking is making a mess and hopefully having a good time while you do it. Okay, there we go. Now, and it also gives me a chance to say to you the reason why that happened is because I was slightly rushing and I didn't make my ball properly, so it fell apart. So make sure you're not silly like me and you don't rush. And we'll put a little avocado flour on top. It's just not quite straight. There we go. That's better. Okay, so that's avocado and carrot nigiri. So even if you're not a meat eater, you can still enjoy nigiri. No problems. Or if you just want to try something different, or also mix it up too. Sometimes when you have a whole plate of fish or meats, it is nice to dot in a little bit of vegetable. Okay, I am now going to finish off this vegetable nigiri, and then we will do some fish. Okay, I just want to show you, that's my vegetable nigiri finished. So I'm now going to set up now for the fish, and yeah, I'll show you how to put together fish nigiri. Okay, see you soon. We are up to the fish. Before I start, I just want to make a correction to something I said earlier about the sushi rice. Now I said that you needed to keep it for 6 hours in the fridge. That was wrong. I'm so overwhelmed with everything I need to tell you. You would keep it for 6 hours at room temperature. You'd only keep it in the fridge if you were going to take longer than 6 hours. So if you were making it to then use the next day, which is probably the most practical way to make sushi rice, to be honest, then you'd put it in, you'd cover it and keep it in the fridge. But if you're going to be 6 hours or less, then you leave it at room temperature. So I just wanted to clarify that. Okay, fish. Now, a lot of people know about sashimi or have heard about sashimi. I am not doing sashimi unless I was going to a Japanese restaurant that had a reputable chef. Hell no. It's really not a healthy thing to do. Most fish you buy and most fish that most people have access to is not fresh. And to do sashimi safely, you really need to use the freshest fish you can possibly get. And for most of us, myself included, this salmon and this barramundi are at least a week, if not 2 weeks old. That's okay because they've been frozen across their whole process, but it's just a bacterial issue that is not worth taking a chance with unless you are really highly skilled with handling raw fish. I am not. So I wouldn't risk poisoning myself or Jamie. And yeah, like I said, unless it was a reputable chef making it, I just wouldn't trust it. Yeah, so that's my danger warning on fish. Don't don't go there. So I'm gonna lightly cook my fish. I've got my grill on, and I now need to show you how I'm gonna slice these, and I've left my knife on the other counter. Excuse me. Right, I have my very sharp knife. Now, because it's going over the nigiri, you want it as thin as possible. Now I do, with sashimi, you probably would do it with the skin because it's so pretty, it's nice, it's iridescent. And with the salmon I am going to do that, but because the barramundi is naturally a flaky fish that's prone to falling apart, I am just going to cut it into very thin slices. So I will do the salmon first. And I just want to take, before I do that, make sure you've washed your hands first. Nice clean hands. Even if you've just been cooking like I have and not really around much, still wash your hands beforehand. Okay. Enough health warnings. I still want a little bit of meat on it. So I'm going to hold it down firmly and about 1/2 centimeter. Don't even begin to ask me what that is in an imperial measure. And just follow the curve of the fish. Keeping your fingers well and truly out the way. Camera. We have a nice thin piece that's mainly skin, but still enough of nice flesh. Okay. Okay, so this bit of fish that's left over, I will use in something else. Whatever you do, do not refreeze it. Once you've thawed a fish, you're committed. You've got to use it all. Okay, the barramundi. Now, it is a lot more flaky and a lot more prone to coming apart when it's being cooked. So as you can see, I've already sliced one little bit off. Luckily, the fillets are already quite thin. I know you can get thicker, but if you're going to be using it for nigiri, then make sure you get a thin fillet. And you can use all kinds of fish. Traditionally they use tuna, but salmon is also very commonly used, and smoked salmon, and if you've ever eaten sushi, you probably know that. But you can use any other type of fish too, and often fish like barramundi is recommended for beginners, and that I definitely am. So yes, I'm just cutting them in these thin strips down the length of the fillet, nice and easy. Make sure you keep your fingers out of the way. If you don't have a very sharp knife, I really don't recommend doing this, because what you end up doing is sawing the fillets, and these are the raggedy bits I've cut off. But that's kind of what you'll end up doing. You'll just like, yeah, serrate your fillet, and it won't be nice. So if this is something you'd like to do, investing in at least one sharp knife is money well spent. Now this last fillet, it's a bit thick for nigiri, so I'm just going to slice it in half. Well, mostly. There we go. That's thin enough. Okay, I'm going to get these cooked up, and then we will put together the fish nigiri. Okay, well, my fish is done. There we are. All done, and I've already cut them into approximately what I hope will be the right size. And I'll move them back over here. And I've got my bowl of cold water to the side. I've got my rice. I've got my wasabi. Lid off, that helps. Okay. And it's exactly the same process as for the vegetable. You use your knife hand to roll the rice into an oblong shape. Then you put a dab of wasabi, unless you hate wasabi. Then you have the fish in this hand. This is the barramundi, by the way. That's the barramundi fillet. And you press it on and then turn over. Done. Now I'm doing the fish in, I don't want to say sashimi style, but that is kind of what I'm doing. Normally when you make sashimi, you don't really add anything else to it, like I did with the vegetable, where I mixed the carrot and avocado together and I added the little seaweed strips, because you're there to appreciate the flavor of the fish itself. And of course these are served with soy, and additional wasabi with pickled ginger. So it's not plain at all, but it's just that the main event is the fish itself. Okay, that's the second one. And it's wasabi. This is the salmon. And because I want the skin, because it's pretty, you have skin side to your hand. So you have the flesh side facing you, and then you press on to the rice and then flip over onto your plate. A little salmon nigiri. Alright, I'm going to finish off this fish, and then I'll show you what it all looks like all together and all pretty and ready to eat. Alright, see you then. Okay, the nigiri is finished. Here it is. we have vegetable, barramundi, salmon, and another vegetable. And these have been in the fridge for a little bit over half an hour as well, which also helps the rice hold together. Ultimately, whether the rice holds together or not will depend on your bowl technique. If you don't get the right pressure to squeeze the rice together, then you can get crumbly nigiri, but it's not the end of the world. Now, normally when you would serve nigiri, you serve it with pickled ginger and sushi and sashimi soy sauce. And it's a lighter sauce, so it won't overwhelm any of the meat or vegetables that you're eating. And of course, wasabi, if you dare. You don't have to use chopsticks. You can use your fingers, and it's recommended that you use your fingers. That's perfectly acceptable when you're eating nigiri or sushi. So the typical technique when eating nigiri, whether you're using chopsticks or your fingers, is to tip your nigiri onto the side and have one chopstick on the topping and one chopstick on the right, and gently. And then you just lightly dip it into the soy. Go for it. I did good. It tastes good. And at the end of the day, that's what matters, is how it's tasting. Don't ever be afraid of your food skills or whether you can make pretty toppings or that sort of thing. Give it a go. It's always worth giving a go. So this is mine and Jamie's dinner for the next 2 nights. I just felt like doing something special. Once a month I try to do something that I wouldn't do every day. And Japanese cooking is something I don't get to do very often at all. So I've been on a bit of a Moroccan binge, so it was time to do some Japanese cooking. Probably a ridiculous place to start for your first video, but yeah, there we go. This is what's happening in my kitchen. So if you've liked this video, please click like. If you'd like to leave a comment or you have a question, you can do that down below, and I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. And if you'd like to stay up to date with any of my other videos, please click subscribe. Thank you very much for watching. Wishing you good karma in your kitchen.